My name is Daniel Voss, and I have spent 22 years making and repairing mirrors. I'm recording this on my phone because I don't know who else to tell, and because the part of me that still trusts evidence wants there to be a record. If you're hearing this, then it reached you somehow, and that means that I was at least partly right about how this spread. I want to start with something normal. I want you to understand what an ordinary Tuesday looked like, so you can feel exactly where the floor gives out. My shop is on Burnett Street, on the ground level of a building older than my grandfather. I do framing, resilvering, custom cuts, antique restoration mostly. People bring me mirrors that have gone cloudy and black at the edges, the silver backing rotting away in dark continents, and I bring them back. There's a chemistry to it, silver nitrate, a reducing agent, the careful flooding of the glass. You watch the metal bloom across the surface like frost running backward. It's the most satisfying thing I know how to do. I tell you this because I want you to understand that I know what mirrors are. I know what they do and what they don't do. A mirror is just glass with a reflective coat behind it. It doesn't remember. It doesn't think. It bounces. Light. And the light carries an image. And that's the whole story. That was the whole story. And Tuesday morning, I had 4 pieces on the bench and a cortado going cold beside the sink. The radio was on low. The light through the front window was that flat gray you get before a storm that never quite arrives. And one of the mirrors on my wall, a tall Victorian piece, beveled, that I'd finished resilvering the week before, showed me the street outside. Except the street outside was on fire. I want to be precise about this because precision is the only thing I have left. The Victorian mirror hangs on my east wall, angled slightly to catch the window. In its glass, I could see the reflection of Burnett Street through the front of the shop, the Korean grocery across the road, the bus shelter, the maple that the city keeps threatening to cut down. And the maple was burning. The bus shelter was a twisted black frame. There was smoke pouring up past the second-story windows of the grocery, and the glass of the grocery's front door was gone. Just a dark mouth, and something was lying on the sidewalk under a sheet of fallen awning. I turned around to look at the actual window. The actual street was fine. Gray morning. The maple had its leaves. A woman walked past with a stroller. The grocery's lights were on, and I could see Mr. Pock inside, stacking oranges. I turned back to the mirror. The street in the mirror was still burning. I've had floaters before. I've had the kind of migraine that puts a shimmering hole in the middle of your vision. I know what it is to not trust your own eyes for a minute. So I did the sensible thing. I closed my eyes. I counted to 10. I drank some of the cold coffee. I looked again, still burning. The smoke had thickened. Now I could see the reflection of my own shop window in the mirror, and through that reflected window, flames were climbing the inside of the glass. And here's the part I keep coming back to. The image wasn't flickering. It wasn't ghostly or transparent or doubled. It was as solid and detailed and ordinary as any reflection I have ever seen in 22 years of looking into mirrors for a living. It just happened to be showing me a street that did not exist yet. I stood there for a long time. Then I took out my phone and I took a photograph of the mirror. In the photograph, the street was perfectly normal. That detail matters more than anything else I'm going to tell you, so I'll say it twice. I photographed the burning street in the mirror. In the photo on my phone, the mirror showed a calm gray morning, the maple intact, the bus shelter standing. But when I lowered the phone and looked at the mirror directly with my own eyes, it was still burning. The camera saw what was true. I saw what was coming. I didn't have the words for it then. I just felt the wrongness of it land in my stomach like swallowed ice. Because a hallucination, a migraine, a detached retina, those don't survive a camera. Those are inside your head. The camera should have agreed with my eyes, or my eyes should have agreed with the camera. Instead, I had the 2 different streets, and a piece of glass that was lying to me in no way no glass should be able to. I called my optometrist. I made an appointment for that afternoon. I told myself I was going to get this looked at, that there was a clot or a pressure problem or a tumor, and I would much rather it be a tumor than the alternative, which I couldn't even name yet. Then, while I was on the phone confirming the time, I happened to glance at the small shaving mirror I keep by the sink. It showed my face. Good, normal. And then behind my reflected face, the reflected back wall of my shop folded inward, and water came through it. Black water, fast, to the height of my reflected knees in the space of about 4 seconds. I hung up the phone. My hands were not steady. I looked at the real wall behind me. Dry, solid, hung with mirrors. Every single one of them was showing me something different. I have, on any given day, somewhere between 30 and 50 mirrors in my shop. Stock pieces, repairs, customer drop-offs, the big showroom wall. I walked the floor, and I looked at each one, and I'm going to tell you what they showed me, because the pattern in it is the first thing that made me afraid in a way I couldn't argue myself out of. The Victorian, Burnett Street, on fire. The shaving mirror, my back room flooding with black water, a cheap full length, the kind you screw to a closet door. It showed the shop, but tilted, the floor at an angle it has never been at, everything sliding toward the far corner, and a long crack walking up the reflected wall. A round vanity mirror a customer named Mrs. Halloran had left for refelting. It showed her own living room, which I recognized from the photos she'd shown me, and in it her ceiling had come down, and there was daylight where there should have been a roof. A stack of small framed ovals, each one a different room I didn't know, and in every one something was wrong. A kitchen full of smoke, a stairwell with the stairs gone, a car's interior, the windshield spider-webbed white, an airbag spent and hanging like a dead thing. Not one mirror showed me the present. Not one showed me a calm, intact, ordinary scene. Every mirror in my shop was showing a disaster. And they weren't the same disaster. That's what I want you to sit with. If it were one event, one fire, one flood, I could imagine some film, some projection, some prank. But these were dozens of separate catastrophes, each one matched to whatever that mirror would normally reflect or whatever room it belonged to. The mirrors weren't showing me a thing that was happening. They were showing me each one, the specific disaster that was coming for whatever it faced. I stood in the middle of my own shop, surrounded by quiet glass, and every quiet pane was screaming a different ruin at me, and the only sound in the actual room was the radio playing something soft, and the refrigerator humming, and my own breath going ragged. I left. I locked the door. I went to find another mirror. The first thing I did when I got outside was look at my car. Side mirror, driver's side. The little convex one with the etched warning that objects are closer than they appear. I want you to understand the instinct here. I just spent 10 minutes inside a building full of glass telling me lies, and the rational explanation, the only sane explanation was that something was wrong with me, with my brain, with my eyes. So I went to a different mirror, different light, outdoors, in the real world, expecting it to show me a normal parking lot and let me start breathing again. The side mirror showed me the parking lot, and it showed me my own car crushed against the concrete pillar at the lot's edge, the hood accordion, the windshield gone, steam rising from a split radiator. The real car was fine. I was standing next to it. I put my hand on the warm metal of the hood to prove it to myself. In the mirror, the wrecked version sat there steaming. I'll tell you what I did, and you can judge me. I did not drive that car. I have not driven it since. I locked it and I walked, because some animal part of me had decided that the mirror was not showing me a story but a sentence, and I was not going to volunteer for it. I walked 4 blocks to a strip of shops, and I went into the first place with a public mirror, I could think of a chain pharmacy, the kind with those round security mirrors up in the corners and a long mirrored wall behind the cosmetics. The cosmetics mirror showed the inside of the pharmacy. Calm, fluorescent, shelves of product. I almost cried with relief. Normal mirror, a normal reflection. I stood there in front of the lipstick and the foundation, and I watched the reflected version of a perfectly boring American pharmacy. And I thought, okay, it's the shop. It's something about the shop. It's localized. It's containable. And then a woman walked into the frame behind my reflection, pushing a cart, a kid in the seat. And in the mirror, as she passed a certain point near the pharmacy counter, the ceiling tiles above her sagged and burst, and a section of HVAC ductwork the size of a refrigerator came down on top of her, and the cart and the child. In the real aisle, 6 feet away, she was reaching for a box of allergy medicine, humming to herself. The mirror wasn't broken. It was just early. I need to tell you about the timing, because the timing is the thing that turned this from a haunting into a countdown. I stayed in that pharmacy. I know how that sounds. Every instinct said run, but a different instinct. The one that's kept me solvent for 22 years. The part of me that needs to understand a thing before I'll believe it. That part made me stay and watch. The woman with the cart and the child moved through the store. I followed at a distance, watching her in every reflective surface I could find. The security mirrors, a glass display case, the dark screen of a kiosk, and in every single one, when she passed that spot near the pharmacy counter, the ceiling came down on her. Always the same spot, always the same collapse, so I did something. I wanted on the record that I did something. I went up to her and I felt like a lunatic, and I said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, I think there's a problem with the ceiling over by the pharmacy. I saw water staining and the tiles are sagging. You might want to keep your little one away from there." She looked at me the way you look at a man who might not be well, but she said thank you, and she steered the cart wide of the pharmacy down a different aisle toward the registers, and I watched her in the mirror by the registers. The ceiling above the registers was fine. She checked out. She left. Nothing fell on her. I went and found a mirror that faced the pharmacy counter, the spot where she would have been, and the collapse was still there, in the glass. The ductwork still came down. The tiles still burst, but now there was no one underneath it. The disaster hadn't gone away. The disaster was fixed to the place. She had simply stepped out of it. I want to be very careful about what I'm claiming. I am not telling you the mirrors show fate. I'm telling you that they show what's coming to a place if nothing changes, and that when you change what's going to happen, the mirror updates. Which means the mirrors aren't a curse. They're a warning that should have made me feel better. For about 90 seconds it did. I thought, this is a gift. This is an early warning system. I can save people. I can call the city about that ductwork. And then I looked back at the cosmetics wall, the long mirror, the one that had shown me a calm pharmacy when I walked in. Wasn't calm anymore. The whole mirrored wall behind the cosmetics had changed while my back was turned. It now showed the pharmacy in darkness, lit only by emergency exits, and the floor was wet, and the shelves were down like dominoes, and there was the unmistakable shape of an arm sticking out from under a fallen rack near the front. Not one person. The whole building. I'd been thinking about it wrong. I'd thought each mirror showed one small disaster, one person, one falling thing. But this mirror was showing me the pharmacy itself, the whole structure coming down. And the timing of that, I didn't know. The woman's ductwork might have been minutes away. The whole building collapsing might be days. The mirror doesn't put a clock on it. It just shows you the end state. I went up to the counter and I asked the pharmacist as calmly as I could when the building was last inspected whether they'd had any structural issues. The man gave me a look and said it was an old building. Sure, but nothing he knew about. Then he said something that stopped me cold. He said, "You're the third person today to ask about the ceiling." I asked, "Who else?" And he said a woman that morning had refused to stand under the pharmacy sign, and a delivery driver had flat out refused to bring a pallet in. Said the place gave him a bad feeling, said he kept seeing the loading door. And here the pharmacist laughed, uncomfortable. Said he kept seeing the loading door bent inward, like something had hit it. I left the pharmacy. I stood on the sidewalk. The afternoon had gone the color of a bruise on other people were seeing it too, not everyone. Not all at once. But it wasn't just me, and it wasn't just my shop, and it wasn't a clot behind my eye. It was spreading. Or it was already everywhere, and I was only just learning to look. I took out my phone and I started recording, which is what you're hearing now, because I understood, standing on that sidewalk, that I was inside something that was getting bigger, and that I might be one of the only people watching it carefully enough to describe it. That was 3 days ago. I need you to understand that I did not just accept this. I'm not built that way. I spent that first evening trying to break it, trying to catch the mirrors in a lie, because if I could prove them wrong even once, I could throw the whole thing out. So I ran a test. Here it is. I went home. I walked. I still wasn't touching the car, and I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, the one I've shaved in front of for 9 years. It showed me my bathroom, and in the reflection, the ceiling light fixture above me had fallen, glass scattered in the sink. The bulb shattered, water running from a pipe in the ceiling cavity, a specific small checkable disaster. The light fixture comes down. So I tested it the only way I could. I got a stepladder, I went up, and I checked the fixture. And the mounting bracket, the little metal bracket that holds the whole thing to the ceiling box, had 2 screws, and one of them was completely backed out, just sitting in its hole, and the other was barely catching. The fixture was hanging by almost nothing. One more shower's worth of steam, loosening that last screw. One more door slammed hard enough, and it comes down. I tightened the screws, both of them, snug. Then I came down the ladder and I looked in the mirror. The fixture was whole, intact. The disaster was gone from the glass. I want you to feel what I felt in that moment, because it's the hinge the whole thing turns on. The mirror had not shown me a fantasy. It had shown me a real, physical, present fault in my own house that I had walked past every day for who knows how long without seeing. And the disaster was already loaded into the world. The screw was already loose. The mirror was just the only thing in the room honest enough to tell me, and I thought, what else is loose? What else is already broken and waiting and invisible to me that some piece of glass somewhere is patiently showing to an empty room? I slept badly. I dreamed in reflections. And in the morning, when I came downstairs, the mirror in my front hall, the one by the door, was showing me my whole street. And my whole street was gone. The hall mirror faces the front door, and when the doors open, it catches a slice of the street through the storm glass. That morning the door was shut, but the mirror showed the street anyway, the way they'd all stopped caring about line of sight, stopped pretending to obey the rules of reflection. My street, in the mirror, was rubble. Not fire, not flood, collapse. The houses across from mine were down to their foundations, the way a building looks after a wrecking crew. Except no crew works a whole street at once. Cars were crushed under fallen brick. The road itself had heaved and split, a long dark seam running its length. And the light was wrong, that flat brown haze that hangs over a place after a lot of dust has gone up and not yet come down. I have lived in this neighborhood for 14 years. I know the difference between a house fire and what I was looking at. A house fire is one address. This was every address. This was the kind of damage you only get from the ground itself moving. Earthquake. I live in a place that does not have earthquakes. Or that's not quite true. We have them the way everywhere has them. Now, a small one every few decades, dishes rattling, a news story, nothing. We are not built for a real one. The houses on my street are unreinforced brick from the 1920s, the kind that come down. I'm not a geologist. I want to be honest about the limits of what I know, but I did what anyone would do. I sat down and I started searching recent seismic activity, local fault lines, and I found a thread, a small one, the kind of thing that doesn't make the news, that there had been a swarm of microquakes about 60 miles out over the past 2 weeks. Too small to feel, just instruments noticing, like the camera that saw the calm street. The machines see what's true, the mirrors see what's coming, and in between those two facts is the gap where I was now living. Here's the thing that broke something in me that morning. I'd been treating each mirror as a private warning. Tighten the screw, save yourself. Steer the cart, save the woman. But you cannot tighten a screw on an earthquake. You cannot steer a whole street out of the way. Some of what these mirrors show is fixable, and some of it is just true. And the horror is that they look exactly the same in the glass. The loose screw and the coming earthquake render identically calm, detailed, certain. So I had a choice to make, and I made it badly, and I'll tell you what it was. I could warn people. I could become the man on the corner, telling everyone the ground was going to open up. Or I could keep watching, keep gathering, keep trying to understand the rule before I started shouting things that would get me committed. I chose to understand first. I think people are dead because of that choice. The delivery driver who saw the bent loading door, the woman who wouldn't stand under the pharmacy sign, they were the thread I pulled. I went back to the pharmacy and I asked the manager, very reasonably, very calmly, if there had been any kind of incident, anyone acting strange, anyone refusing to come in. I said I was a contractor and I'd heard there were safety concerns. People will tell a contractor things they won't tell a stranger. She told me there'd been a lot of it lately, customers leaving without buying anything, looking shaken. One man who came in stood in front of the cosmetics mirror for a full minute, then walked out and threw up in the parking lot. A teenage girl who screamed in the bathroom and wouldn't say why. I asked if she'd looked, the manager, if she'd looked at the cosmetics mirror herself. She said no. She said it the way you say no to a question you've been avoiding. And then, because I think she'd been waiting for someone to ask, she said, the thing that confirmed it wasn't just my eyes, wasn't just my shop, wasn't just me. She said my compact in my purse. I stopped carrying it. 3 days ago I opened it to check my lipstick, and I saw my kitchen on fire. My own kitchen. I recognized the curtains. I asked what she did. She said she went home and unplugged everything she could think of. Toaster, coffee maker, the space heater in the bathroom. And the next time she opened the compact, the kitchen was fine. Except, she said, and here her voice dropped, except she'd left the space heater plugged in upstairs. And that night, the compact showed the upstairs hall full of smoke. So she unplugged that too, and the next thing the compact showed her was the car, and then the office, and then her mother's house. It just keeps finding the next one, she said, or every time I fix one, it shows me another, like it's never going to run out. That's the part I hadn't let myself see yet. And she said it out loud in a pharmacy break room, and it landed in me like a stone going down a well. The mirrors are not showing you one disaster. They're showing you that the world is absolutely full of them. That at any given moment you are surrounded by dozens of small loaded guns, loose brackets, frayed wires, worn brakes, weak hearts, drunk drivers 3 blocks over, and the only reason you survive any ordinary day is that most of them don't go off, or you happen to step out of the way without knowing. The mirrors took that comfortable blindness away. They showed every loaded gun at once. And a human mind is not built to see that. We are built to see a calm pharmacy, a quiet street, an ordinary Tuesday. The mirrors had started showing us the truth underneath the calm, and the truth underneath the calm is that everything is always almost ending, all the time, for everyone. The manager asked me what she should do. I didn't have an answer. I still don't. I went home, and I covered every mirror in my house with sheets, and for one night, it was almost bearable. By the third day, it was on the news, but wrong. It's always wrong at the start, because the people reporting it are using cameras, and cameras don't see it. The first stories were about a mass delusion, a wave of anxiety attacks, people convinced they were seeing things in mirrors, possibly a social media-driven panic, possibly a contaminant, possibly a new strain of something. They interviewed a psychiatrist who used the phrase collective hysteria and a neurologist who talked about how suggestible the human visual system is. They ran it next to a story about a celebrity divorce, the thing they could not explain, and you could hear it cracking the calm of the anchors as the days went on, was the photographs. Because everyone was filming their mirrors to prove they weren't crazy, and the footage showed normal reflections, and that should have ended it. That should have been proof it was all in people's heads, but the disasters kept happening. That's what the news couldn't square. A woman in another state posted that her bathroom mirror showed her stairs collapsed. People mocked her. 2 days later, her stairs collapsed, old house, rotted joist, and she'd had the warning and gotten her kids to use the back stairs, and the comments under her post turned from mockery to silence. It started piling up. The man who didn't get on a flight because the airplane bathroom mirror, he said, showed the cabin full of oxygen masks and smoke. And that flight had an emergency landing, engine fire. Everyone survived, but barely. The nurse who moved a patient out of a room because the patient's hand mirror showed the wall above the bed stained dark. And that night, a water main in the ceiling above that exact bed let go. One by one, the mirrors were being right. And the cameras kept saying nothing was wrong. You cannot imagine what that does to a society, to have a warning system that it only works for human eyes and that no instrument can verify, because instantly there are two kinds of people: the ones who look and believe what they see and rearrange their whole lives around it, and the ones who look at the calm photograph and say it's a delusion, a panic, a hoax, and refuse to act. And the second group started dying. Not all of them, but enough. Enough that you could feel the city tilting toward the mirrors, toward belief, the way a room full of people slowly turns toward a fire alarm they'd been pretending not to hear. I kept my mirrors covered, but I'd started to understand that I had a responsibility that the manager with the compact didn't have. I have a shop full of mirrors. I make them. I'm one of the few people who might be able to test what they are. So I uncovered the Victorian, and I started asking it questions. You can't talk to a mirror, I know that. But you can change what's in front of it and watch what changes in the glass, and that's a kind of conversation. The Victorian still showed Burnett Street on fire. I'd been avoiding it. Now I made myself study it, the way I'd study a piece I was about to restore, looking for the grain of the thing, the logic. First question, how far ahead? I'd fixed the light fixture and the disaster vanished. So close, events I could affect, but the fire in the street, the earthquake, I had no way to date them. So I tried something. I put a calendar in front of the mirror, a big desk calendar facing the glass, so the reflection showed the date. The reflected calendar showed the date, today's date, and the street behind it burned. Then I flipped the page forward. One day, the reflection updated and the street still burned, but worse, more collapsed. I flipped forward again. 2 days. The street in the reflection was just black timbers and ash, cooling, over. I sat back. If I was reading it right, and I want to be careful, this is the shakiest thing I'll tell you. The fire wasn't a single moment. It was a process that started in roughly a day and burned out over 3. The mirror wasn't showing me one frozen instant of the future. It was showing me the worst state of whatever I pointed it at. And I could scrub through time by changing what it reflected. I tested it again with something I could check. I aimed a small mirror at my own chest and held the calendar, so the reflection showed tomorrow's date. My reflection looked fine, healthy, Standing there holding a calendar like an idiot, I scrubbed forward a week, fine, a month, fine, a year. At a year out, my reflection was sitting down, and there was an oxygen line in my reflected nose, and the room around me wasn't my house. I'm 51. I feel fine. But I scrubbed forward, and the glass showed me getting sick. And I don't know if that's a warning I can fix or a fact I can't. And I haven't been able to make myself look again. That's the cruelty of the thing. It doesn't tell you which disasters you can stop. It just shows you all of them with the same flat certainty, the loose screw and the failing heart side by side, and leaves you to figure out which is which by ruining yourself trying. But I learned the rule, or part of it. The mirrors show the worst near-future state of whatever they reflect. Point one at a wall, and it shows the wall's eventual ruin. Point one at a person, and it shows that person's coming harm. Point one at a city somehow, and it shows the cities. And then I went to bed, and at 3 a.m. I woke up because I could hear, very faintly, every covered mirror in my house. Not a sound exactly. A pressure, a weight in the dark behind the sheets, and I understood that the mirrors had stopped waiting to be looked at. They wanted to be looked at. Here's where I lose the people who need everything to make sense, and I'm sorry, but I'm not going to lie to you to keep you comfortable. That's exactly the disease that's killing this city. The need for a calm photograph over a true reflection. The mirrors changed. Up to that night, they were passive. They showed you the worst thing if you looked, and if you didn't look, you were spared. Cover them, and you were safe. That's why I'd covered mine. That's why the pharmacy manager stopped carrying her compact. But that night, they stopped respecting the sheets. I came downstairs in the dark, and the hall mirror had pushed its image through the fabric. Not glowing exactly, the sheet just looked thin over it, like a film over a wound. And through the film I could see the street in rubble, lit by that brown after-dusk light, and the light was coming out into my hall. I pulled the sheet off because there's no point covering a thing that won't be covered. And the mirror showed me the street, and then, and I swear this on the only thing I have left, my own careful sanity. The view in the mirror moved. It panned, like a camera. It traveled down the ruined, reflected street, past the collapsed houses, and it stopped. And it pushed in on one figure standing in the rubble. The figure was me. I was standing in the destroyed street, in the reflection, looking back toward my own house. And the reflected me lifted his hand, and the reflected me pointed, past himself, at something behind the glass, at me, the real me standing in the hall. I have spent 22 years knowing exactly what a mirror does. A mirror does not pan. A mirror does not push in. A mirror does not show you a version of yourself that moves on its own and points at you. I backed out of that hall, and I didn't sleep again. In the morning I tried to think it through like a problem, because thinking like a problem is the only way I know how to stay a person. Here's what I had. The mirrors started by showing the worst near future, passively only when looked at. Then they started reaching past the things meant to block them. Now at least one of them was composing, choosing what to show, moving, and it had shown me a future where I was standing in the disaster, not dead under it, but standing in it, alive, after, which meant one of two things. Either I survive what's coming to my street, or the version of me in the mirror isn't a prediction of me at all. I want to tell you, it scared me, it did, but underneath the fear there was a worse thing, the curiosity, the same engine that kept me in that pharmacy when I should have run, because if the mirror was no longer just predicting, if it was reaching, composing, pointing, then it wanted something. And a thing that wants something can be bargained with, or understood, or fought. I went into the shop. The whole showroom wall, 40 mirrors, was showing the same thing now. Not 40 different disasters anymore. One disaster, repeated 40 times across 40 panes. The city from above. The whole city the way it would look in 3 days, and it was the earthquake and the fire and the flood all at once. All the small disasters I'd been cataloging, rolled into one. Every loaded gun in the city going off in the same hour. And in every one of the 40 mirrors standing in the ruins, looking out at me, was me. I wasn't the only one being shown myself. By now there were groups. People who looked, that's what they called themselves. Just the people who look. Finding each other. Because when the thing that's happening to you is unprovable and your friends think you're sick, you go looking for the others. They met in a community center across town, in a room they'd stripped of every reflective surface so they could talk without being shown things. I went. I needed to know if what I'd seen was mine alone or all of us. It was all of us. A woman said her mirror had started following her from room to room, the image traveling pane to pane through her house. A man said his bathroom mirror had stopped showing his death and started showing him standing over other people's. A teenager, and this is the one that stayed with me, said every mirror showed her exactly the same thing now. Herself, older, standing in a ruined place, beckoning. Come here. Come closer. We compared, and the pattern was sickening in its consistency. The mirrors had moved through 3 stages, all of us in lockstep, without ever having met. First, passive warnings of real fixable faults. Second, the cataclysm. The big unfixable disasters, the earthquake, the city. Third, the self. Each of us shown a version of ourselves, alive inside the ruin, looking out, reaching. A man in the corner, older than me, a retired engineer, said the thing none of us wanted to say. He said it's not warning us anymore. The warnings were how it got our attention. It needed us to trust it first. You don't believe a thing that lies to you. So it told us the truth, real loose screws, real water mains, real flights. It built credibility. And now that we believe it, now that we look at every mirror we pass, it's showing us what it actually wants. Someone asked what it wanted. He pointed at the teenager. It wants us to come closer. It's been showing us a place, a ruined place where a version of us is already standing, already waiting. It's not predicting the disaster. The disaster is the door. It's going to bring the whole city down at once. And in the confusion, the dusts, the dark, that's when the reflections stop being reflections. I told them about the panning, the pointing, the 40 mirrors with the same city and the same me, and the room went quiet in the particular way a room goes quiet when one person's private nightmare turns out to be everyone's. Then a woman near the door, she'd been the one keeping watch, making sure no reflective surface had snuck into the room, said very softly, "There's a window behind me. It's dark outside. The glass is acting like a mirror." We all turned. The window showed the room. All of us sitting in our circle, and behind each of our reflected selves stood another figure, one for each of us, standing too close, looking out, and every one of them was smiling. The retired engineer was named Russ, and Russ decided to test the door theory, and I am the only one in that room who knows exactly what happened to him, so I'm going to tell it carefully. Russ's idea was this. If the disaster is a door, if the mirror things need the chaos of the citywide event to cross over, then the mirrors should be desperate for that event to happen. They should be in some sense counting down to it. And if they're counting down, then they should react if you threaten to stop it. You can't stop an earthquake, but you can stop a person from being where the earthquake will reach them. Russ's logic was that the citywide disaster in the glass was an aggregate all of us in our individual ruins summed. If enough of us left the city, the aggregate would have to change. The mirror would have to update, and in updating it might show its hand. So Russ stood in front of the window, the one that had shown us the smiling figures, and he announced out loud to the glass, that he was leaving, that he was getting in his car and driving 200 miles inland tonight and never coming back. He said it like a man serving a notice. The figure behind his reflection stopped smiling. I watched it happen. The reflected Russ stood there normally, but the figure behind him, the too close one, its face changed. It's hard to describe. It went flat, attentive, and then the reflection did the thing my hall mirror had done. It panned. It pushed past Russ, toward the glass, toward us, and the whole window filled with that single face. And the face opened its mouth, and there was no sound. That's the part I can't get past. There should have been a sound. Instead, every one of us in that room felt it, behind the eyes, a pressure like descending in a plane too fast. And Russ, the real Russ, standing in front of the window, staggered and put his hand to his face. And when he took it away, his nose was bleeding, both nostrils fast. He left. He actually left that night, drove inland like he'd said. He texted the woman by the door from a motel 4 hours away to say he'd made it. He was fine. The mirror in the motel bathroom showed him a normal room. The next morning he didn't answer. The morning after that, the state police found his car in the motel lot and his room empty, and the bathroom mirror, the manager said, cracked corner to corner, and a single bloody handprint on the glass, on the inside of the glass, on the side a hand cannot reach. You cannot leave the room. That's what Russ proved. The door isn't in the city. The door is in the glass. And you carry it with you. The 40 mirrors in my shop had been counting down, and I'd finally figured out how to read the count. The calendar trick still worked. Every morning I'd put the calendar in front of the showroom wall and scrub the date forward until the city in the glass appeared and until the rubble and the dust and the standing figures showed up. And every morning the date at which it appeared was closer. 6 days out, then 4, then 2. That morning it was tomorrow. The city comes down tomorrow. I'm recording this the night before. If the timestamp on this file says what I think it'll say, then you're hearing a man on his last ordinary evening, and I'm going to use it to tell you everything I've learned, because tomorrow I won't be able to. Here's what I know. The mirrors are not from here. I don't mean that the way it sounds. I don't have a theory about where they're from, and I'm not going to insult you by inventing one. I mean only that the thing showing through the glass is not a property of glass. It's using the glass. Any reflective surface will do once it's strong enough. Windows at night, water, the dark face of a phone, the back of a spoon. It started in the silvered mirrors, the deep ones, the ones with the most reflection to work with. My shop, full of fresh re-silvered antique glass, was practically an open door. That's why it reached me first. I built the welcome mat with my own hands, and it feeds on being looked at. That's the closest I can come. In the beginning it had to earn the looking, so it told the truth, showed us real faults, saved real lives, made itself indispensable. Now, it doesn't have to earn anything. We look at mirrors 100 times a day without thinking. Every glance is a sip it takes from us. And it has been getting stronger, pain by pain, glance by glance. BLs all over the world. The disasters are real. I need you to hear that clearly, because it's the part people get wrong. The earthquake is real. The fire is real. It is not creating these things. The world really is full of loose screws and weak joists and shifting faults all the time. And most days they don't all go off at once. What the thing in the glass does is align them. It can't make a new disaster, but it can nudge the 1,000 small failures the world is already carrying until they happen together, in one place, in 1 hour. The aggregate, the door, and the door opens into us. Not into the city, into the people. In the chaos of the citywide event, when every survivor is dazed and bleeding and surrounded by broken glass, and a destroyed city is nothing but broken glass. Every window, every car, every shard. That's when the reflections stop being behind the surface. That's the crossing. The smiling figure behind your reflection steps to the front, and you step back, and after that, the thing that walks out of the wreckage wearing your face is looking out through your eyes at the next person and showing them a mirror. I don't know what we become. I know that rust became a handprint on the wrong side of the glass. I have spent tonight breaking every mirror in my shop, 40 of them. I swept the pieces into bags and carried the bags out, and I am sitting now in a room with no reflective surface I can find. And I've turned my phone face down, except to record, and for the first time in 3 days I cannot feel them watching. It doesn't matter. Tomorrow the whole city becomes a mirror. It's morning. I made it to morning. I want to describe what's happening as it happens, while I still sound like myself. The light is wrong. Not dark, the sun's up, but flat and brown at the edges. The after-dust light from the mirrors, except there's no dust yet. The air has it anyway. Like the city is reflecting the future onto itself now without needing glass. I went out at dawn. The streets are full. Not panicked, that's the horror of it. Full of people walking calmly in the same direction, toward downtown, toward the open ground of the Central Plaza, the way the pharmacy manager said the coastal crowds walked. The way you walk when something is showing you where to stand. They're the ones who looked too long. You can tell. Their faces have that flat, attentive look the figure behind Russ's reflection had. They don't talk. They walk toward the open ground where, if the city comes down, the falling buildings won't crush them, where they'll survive the disaster intact, dazed, surrounded by glass, ready to be crossed into. The thing doesn't want us dead. I had that wrong too. It wants us alive in the wreckage. The disaster isn't the weapon. The disaster is the harvest condition. I am not walking toward the plaza. I'm walking the other way, against the crowd, toward the river, because moving water doesn't hold an image. And I've decided that if I'm going to be anywhere when this happens, I want to be looking at something that can't look back. A woman just grabbed my arm. She wasn't one of the flat-faced ones. Her eyes were still hers, still frightened. She said, "You're going the wrong way. The safe ground is downtown. The mirror showed me." She believed it. The thing told her the truth about everything for 3 days, so it could tell her this one lie at the end and have her believe it with her whole heart. I told her the open ground is the trap. I told her the disaster won't kill her, and that's the problem. I told her to find moving water and stay there, and don't look at any glass at all. Not a window, not a phone, not a puddle once the dust settles. She looked at me the way you look at a man going the wrong way during an evacuation. Then she let go of my arm and kept walking toward the plaza. I couldn't save her. I couldn't save almost any of them. The ground is starting to move. It started. I'm at the river. I'm going to keep talking because my voice is the only thing in my own head right now that I'm sure is mine. The first shock came about 10 minutes ago. Not huge. Enough to bring down the oldest brick, the unreinforced stuff, the houses on my street. I felt it in my feet and heard it across the city as a long, low grinding, and then the particular sound of masonry letting go, that avalanche sound, blocks of it all over. The mirrors were right. They were right about every single thing. The maple on Burnett is burning. Right now, a gas line, I think. The first shock cracked a main, and something sparked, and the fire is doing exactly what the Victorian showed me on Tuesday. The street is going down. Exactly the way the hall mirror showed me. I am watching 3 days of predictions come true at once, and there is no satisfaction in it. None. It is the worst thing I have ever seen. The crowd in the plaza is standing. I can see them from here. Across the water, a field of people on the open ground, not running, standing, faces up, as the buildings around the plaza shed their glass. And that's the part the thing needed. Every window in the city is failing at once. The air over downtown is full of falling glass, catching the brown light. 10,000 mirrors, 100,000. Raining down around a crowd of people who were told to gather exactly there. I can feel it from here. the pressure behind the eyes. Even with no glass near me, even with the moving water in front of me, I can feel the thing reaching, swelling, taking its harvest sip from a whole city at once. My nose is bleeding. I'm letting it. I'm watching the water. There's a tugboat half sunk at the far bank, and its hull has a long, wet curve of steel that's almost reflective, and I keep my eyes off it. Down here at the moving water, I can almost hold. Almost. The crowd in the plaza has gone still. All of them, stopped mid-step, every one, like a held breath. And now I can see it even from here. Even this far, they're turning. The whole crowd, turning in place to face the same direction. Not toward anything I can see. Toward something that the falling glass is showing them. There's a sound now. The first sound this whole thing has made. Not from the buildings, from the people. All of them at once. A single long exhale, and under it something that is almost a word, and is not a word. The sound a thing makes the first time it tries on a throat that was never built for it. I'm not going to describe the rest. I can see it, and I'm not going to describe it. You don't need it, and I won't carry it for you. I'm going to look at the water and keep talking. I have to say this part fast, because I don't have long, and because it's the part that matters. I was given a warning system 3 days early, and I used it to be curious instead of useful. I tested it, I cataloged it, I sat in a pharmacy and followed a woman through reflections like a scientist watching an experiment. When I could have been pulling fire alarms in every building in the city, I understood it before almost anyone, and I spent that understanding on understanding more. And people walked into the open ground because the only man who knew it was a trap was busy holding a calendar up to a mirror in his shop. The pharmacy manager fixed her kitchen and her car and her mother's house, one disaster at a time, racing it, and it never ran out, because that was never the point. The point was the looking. Every fix made her look again. She thought she was defusing the bombs, and the looking was the bomb. If you're hearing this and the glass in your part of the world hasn't started yet, if your mirror this morning just showed you your own tired face and nothing behind it, then you still have the only thing that matters, which is the choice not to look. Cover them. Not with sheets. Sheets don't hold. Take them down. Take them off the walls and out of your bag and break them and bag the pieces. And put the bag somewhere far from where you sleep. Turn your phone face down. Drain the dark from your windows at night with curtains, real ones, heavy. Stay near moving water if you can. It can't hold the image long enough to reach you. And when the disasters start, and they will, because the world really is full of loose screws and the thing in the glass really can align them, do not go to the open ground. Do not go where it's safe. Safe is the harvest. When the buildings come down, the safest place is the trap, and the dangerous place, the place under cover, near broken things, near water, is where it can't easily reach. The instinct that keeps you alive in an ordinary disaster is the exact instinct it's counting on. Run from the falling buildings and you run into the field of glass. I'm sorry, I figured it out 3 days early and I still couldn't make myself believe it in time to act, and I'm one of the believers. I told you the Victorian, on the last morning, showed all 40 panes. The same thing the ruined city and me standing in it, looking out. I've been thinking about that, here by the water, while the city does what it does behind me. A version of me, alive, in the ruins, looking out of the glass, reaching, pointing past himself at the real me in the hall. I thought it was a prediction. I survived, it said I'm standing in the wreckage, but Russ taught me the figure behind the reflection isn't you. It's the thing wearing the shape of you, the one that crosses over when the disaster gives it the door. So the mirror wasn't showing me my future, it was showing me its plan for me. Me in the wreckage, looking out, reaching, that's what it wanted me to become. The thing in the glass with my face, finding the next person, showing them their loose screws, earning their trust, 3 days at a time, forever. I'm not in the wreckage. I'm by the water. I went the wrong way down the evacuation, away from the safe ground, and I am bleeding from the nose, and the pressure behind my eyes is enormous, but I'm still the one talking. I checked. I checked at the only way I have left. I cupped river water in my hands a minute ago, fast, just long enough to see, and the face that looked back at me from my own wet hands was tired and frightened and bleeding, and it was mine. There was nothing standing behind it. The water broke up before anything could. That's the test. It's the only test there is now. When this is over, when the dust settles, you find yourself standing somewhere intact and dazed. Before you do anything else, find moving water and look fast and see if you're alone in it. If there's something behind your face, smiling, then I'm sorry. You're already the door. If there's nothing, if it's just your own tired eyes looking back, then you're still you. Stay you. It's the only thing that was ever ours to keep. The grinding behind me has stopped. The city is down. The crowd has gone quiet. And now they're all turning around. They're walking back from the plaza, the whole crowd, out of the open ground into the broken streets, fanning out, calm, unhurried, with that flat, attentive look. And they are going house to house. I can see them. They're not searching for survivors, and they're searching for the ones who didn't gather, the ones who hid, the ones who, like me, went the wrong way, because the harvest and the plaza took the ones who came when called, and now those bodies, wearing those faces, are coming to collect the rest of us, the holdouts, the believers who knew better, one at a time, the way it always works, the way it earned us in the first place, patiently, personally, with a familiar face and a true warning and an outstretched hand. There's a man, walking along the riverbank toward me from a long way off. He's not hurrying. He has the walk. I have moving water in front of me and broken ground behind me, and I picked this spot because it's the hardest place for the glass to reach, and I'm going to find out in a minute whether that was enough or whether I just chose a slower door. If you're hearing this, then it got out. Then this file traveled phone to phone, the way the looking travels, and that frightens me more than anything, because I don't know if a recording of a voice can carry the thing the way a reflection can. I don't think it can. A voice isn't a surface. A voice doesn't look back. So listen to me and don't look at the glass. The man is closer now. He's close enough that I can see his face. It's mine. Don't look. Don't go to the safe ground. Find moving water. Stay you.